Hello everybody, it's Active Asshole on Roids here with another glorious rant. That's Active Asshole on Roids, kryptonite for conservatives. Um, Tonight, or should I say this morning, I'm going to talk a little bit about some of my forays into arguing with religion, with religious people, religious fundamentalists, evangelicals, dispensationalists, Christian Reconstructionists, the whole Gary North, R.J. Rushdoony, Pat Robertson crowd. I don't know why I keep looking down at the screen here. I don't even have a transcript, but I need to look at the camera. Look at the camera. Look. All right. All right. Well, in the last few days, I've been getting into it with a few religious people, with a few religious, folks, and I keep thinking back to when I used to get into it with the religious fundamentalists just I used to get into it with them. My original beef was not with libertarians, but it was at first with religious fundamentalists because growing up in Alabama, I'm surrounded by every evangelical, Pentecostal, Southern Baptist, crazy John Bircher imaginable one can imagine. And then you have to take into account that Alabama has the Von Mises Institute at Auburn University, which I live right up the street from. Yeah, I mean, I can literally see the damn thing right up the road. And then there's then there's the sovereign citizen movement, militia nuts. I mean, before I got into it with any of them, it was always with the religious right. They were the ones that I was originally fighting against when I got into when I even got into any form of activism, whether it was right wing or left wing. Back when I was a right wing libertarian, my primary beef, even then, was with the religious right, and even today, I have a massive I have a massive contention with them because I see them. Libertarians, I mean, they only make up like 7% of the country's population. Right-wing libertarians, they only represent like 7% of our country's voting bloc. But they have outsized influence because of their deep pockets that fund them, like Pete Peterson and the Koch brothers and Shel Nadelson, just to name a few. Uh, but but I've always considered the religious right to be the most dangerous of all of the right wing's elements. And I understand there are hybrids out there between libertarianism and the religious right. Gary North being a good example because he was the son-in-law of R.J. Rushdoony, who carried on the Christian Reconstructionist, Dominionist, uh, strain, only crossbred it with Austrian economics. So he's like a leading force on the whole hybridized subgroup between Austrian economics, libertarianism, and the religious right. We're the distilled Tea Party or crazy types, and I just in the past few, I'm going back to what I was saying. In the past few days, I've just been getting into it with a few religious people. Some of them are nice, but at the same time, I don't turn my back on the nice ones any more than I do the ones that ain't so nice, that aren't so nice. Sorry, because the fact that they have such broad support, even in libertarian circles, means that the religious right is ultimately the true threat because they're always so able to rely on this massive evangelical crowd that's willing to burn all the shoe leather in the world just to get you elected if you say a few buzzwords. I mean, we think about it. We still have like 45,000, 4,500 nuclear weapons in our arsenal. I don't want those assholes in charge. The only reason they ever wanted power over the U.S. government was so they could ultimately play out their end times scenario. That they want power over our country because they need our country as a foot in the door to kickstart what they view will be events that will lead to an apocalypse or to the rapture, which is kind of stupid considering the rapture is just a theological construct developed by John Darby, a 19th century English theologian who was considered a fucking wacko even by his peers. But this the escapist revenge fantasy, I mean, the circular reasoning behind these people is on par with libertarians, but I always saw them as more dangerous because of their numbers, because of their capacity to influence the politics, simply because it's really hard to write them off as just controlled opposition. The libertarians, they are controlled opposition. You know, the libertarian movement, the neo-Confederates in the libertarian movement, they never would have had a time of day had it not been for the Koch brothers, particularly Charles Koch, funding the movement from the time Milton Friedman and Robert Walsh, got off on this little binge of theirs back in the 40s and 50s. It's just something about the religious right, this special brand of anti-pluralism that can be blended easily with any other wacko right-wing belief system, whether it be libertarianism or Gerald L.K. Smith's pyramidology or whatever, or sovereign citizen movement wackoisms like those from Stuart Rhodes, the one-time aide of Ron Paul and founder of the Oath Keeper groups. They just the theology, the Pentecostal how speaking in tongues kind of crazy theology that is completely immune to evidence, completely immune to empirical evidence. And this immunity to empirical evidence, it stems from this idea that they believe in things without evidence because faith is put on a massive pedestal, even though that is the belief in things without empirical evidence. And to them, this is okay because it's seen as a virtue to believe in something without evidence. If you disregard evidence, even if you quote from the Bible to prove your point, that they're full of shit. Because many of them don't really read the Bible, they just believe in the theology that their right-wing pastor spouts on Sunday, they will still throw that evidence aside, even though it's from the book they say is the one true word, and they will claim they will still see that as something to be championed because it's faith, and it's blind faith, and they need it. They just, I don't know, just, as someone who has been studying the right wing for close to 10 years now and has been actively railing against them, it's just, to me, the religious right holds a very special place on my shit list. Because the libertarians, in spite of the Koch brothers' money, they can be marginalized, assuming, of course, you can get the religious bigots that make up the religious right to disavow them. But the religious right, there's no way you can really control them. There's no way you can keep them from poisoning the body politic with logicide, with historical revision, because there are just so damn many of them in the South, and to a lesser degree in other parts of the country, such as the Midwest, but still, the influence is there. And when the Tea Party and the libertarians, once their time, once their little 15 minutes of fame are over, the religious right, they're going to be back out in force, and they're going to be asking, where's mine? And in my opinion, as long as the religious right continues to be a force in America, it's not just the United States that's in danger, it's the world itself. These people are a death cult. They're a death cult. They gave up on this life in aspiration for the next one, and they're willing to take everyone with them just to prove, well, not to prove, but just to enact something based on faith, an end time scenario, a war. They want a war. They claim they're the peacemakers. They fall into a persecution complex when you go after them. And every act of trying to take them to task just emboldens them. They believe they're being martyred, regardless of what you. It's just there's no way you can really deal with them. They're like the Muslim Brotherhood or Wahhabists of the United States, a Christian version of Wahhabism. They're the greatest danger to pluralism that our nation currently has, just because there are so damn many of them. And a big part of why so many older people for so long voted for the Republican Party, in spite of the fact that they were drawing Social Security and Medicare in old age, stems from the fact that as they get older, they start to fear death, which means they start going for whatever will promise them immortality in some form or another. It stems from the fear of death, and this fear drives them. I mean, I guess the main reason why I haven't been as vocal, why I've concentrated largely on just right-wing libertarians and the militia movement, as opposed to going after the religious right, is that as an atheist, I really betray my moniker on here, as the active asshole on roids, because I'm not as much of an asshole as I really wish as I think I am. I mean, I don't want to piss off many of my progressive friends who happen to be people of faith, because I just don't want to come out and say, oh, that's called being gullible, and then I wind up pissing off people, and I know they'll never vote for the Republican Party or anything, but the fact of the matter is, I don't really want to cause any kind of a schism within the civil activists of this country any more than what the right has created in the past 20, 30 years among us. We really don't need that right now. I'm being strategic minded in that I don't want to piss off people over arguments over religion, even though I know my fellow progressives that are religious follow a different theology from the religious right. I still don't have any respect for universalists at the end of the day. I mean, I actually have more respect for Christians in general. I have more respect for Calvinists simply because they're willing to say, oh, well, free will's a fake. Free will's not real. It doesn't exist. They just come out and say it right then and there. There's no contradiction in the theology on that one point. But I have relatively little to no respect for the other two major branches of Christendom. But I still believe that Calvinists, at the end of the day, are completely and utterly wrong in their assertions. And, I mean, there are many things that I won't touch with a 15-foot pole. I mean, simply because I don't want to go into dick territory. I don't want to just say something that's going to piss off the most important allies, even though I disagree with them. They're still my fellow progressives, and I don't want to cause a flame war online between different members of our circle. And I don't know whether you would call this. I mean, in some ways, it would be an act of cowardice on my part, I guess. But hell, even on the issue of feminism, heck, I champion feminist goals for a long time. But even on the issue of feminism, I get into it. You know, I have my disagreements with feminists, really harsh ones. But at the same time, you know, even though I'm a secular humanist, yes, I called myself a humanist. And I've heard a lot of people on my side claim that being a humanist, that claiming to be a humanist is just a coward's way out, a bullshit way out, that you're some kind of men's rights activist kind of nut job. I'm not. I'm not. I've seen a lot of this crap being thrown around by people on my side. But the thing is, that's the thing. Secular humanism is the belief that you can support the common good, that you can support it in the absence of religion. It's the belief that you support the common good based on a notion of universal rights. Not because some magical celestial sky daddy told you to. You do it because it's right. And I've been real hesitant to really defend my own atheism. You know, I've been really hesitant to defend my own reservations about other groups that have typically supported have supported my goals in the advancement of public policy, you know, who have been on the same page as me. Because for the most part, I care more about economic justice. That's what I care about. I care about fighting corporate power. I care about fighting against, you know, the concentration of wealth in the hands of a chosen few. That's originally what being on the left was supposed to be about, fighting against corporate power, fighting against concentrated power in private hands. Because that is the very antithesis of democracy. And oftentimes getting into it about social issues, even on the left, it turns our side into just one writhing mass of issue silo groups. And I don't want to see that happen, because it's what killed the left to begin with. I mean, again, I haven't, I just, well, I guess that's a good place to stop. But I mean, you know, I guess this is a good rant. I don't know. All right, active asshole on roids. Peace.